Meanwhile, Hezbollah's leader meeting with top officials from Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad earlier today, as the Israeli Air Force says it conducted airstrikes in the West Bank and Syria overnight. Joining me right now is Center for American Security co-chairman, Fox News contributor, and former national security advisor to Vice President Mike Pence. He is the author of War by Other Means, a General in the Trump White House. Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg back with us. Lieutenant General, good to see you. Thanks very much. Give us your reaction to Trey's report.
Yeah, good morning, Maria, and thanks for having me. I think he's right on the spot. And what he's talking about primarily, let's look at Hamas and the Gaza Strip right now. I think what the Israelis are doing, which is smart, is they're actually preparing the battlefield for an invasion eventually into Gaza by ground troops, which is going to be really hard. And they're probably training up for it. There's a huge training facility in the southern desert in Israel called Zelim. It's about a 600-building facility. In fact, they call it Mini Gaza. And that's where they're probably training up to go in. And they're using munitions right now, like artillery and air, to basically soften up the battlefield. And they're also looking at the same time trying to figure a way with Qatar or other nations how to get the hostages out. And there's still about 200, about 12 Americans, we believe, are still held hostage. And they're trying to get them released or at least moved to a more secure location before they go in. The Israelis are going to go in. There's no doubt about it. They're just preparing the battlefield correctly to do it. Yeah. And then when Trey made the comment, which was correct about the Hezbollah to the north, we're trying to keep we in the United States, with our pressure on Iran, is trying to keep Hezbollah out of this fight as well. And we have influence on Iran through force if necessary. And what we don't want Hezbollah to do, Maria, is actually open up a second front on Israel. Let the Israelis fight the fight with Hamas in the south, hold on to the north, and then we'll see where it goes.
And I guess that is up to Iran, right? I mean, this latest warning from Blinken is quite stunning. I mean, the Pentagon confirmed that U.S. troops in the Middle East have now been attacked 14 times. They're attacked by drones or rockets. Just in the last week, 24 people have been injured as a result. Troops in Iraq being targeted in 11 separate attacks, while U.S. forces in Syria have also been attacked 3 times. Pentagon officials said Monday that the attacks have Iran's fingerprints all over them. And then we hear from Secretary of State Anthony Blinken on it. He issued a warning to Iran about this at the UN Security Council yesterday. Let's take a listen. Watch.
The United States does not seek conflict with Iran. We do not want this war to widen. But if Iran or its proxies attack U.S. personnel anywhere, make no mistake, we will defend our people, we will defend our security swiftly and decisively.
General, your reaction?
Yeah, here's the mistake, Maria. The mistake is that should have been issued by the President of the United States. Look, I remember quite clearly when the President was at the State of the Union, and in the State of the Union he said quite clearly, if you attack, not kill, if you attack an American, you forfeit your life. That came from the President. The President needs to make those comments. He's the commander-in-chief. He's the one who will release military forces if needed. And Iran should be, everybody should understand, make it very clear to Iran, we know they've got their hands on Hezbollah and Hamas as well. And they need to understand, if Hezbollah enters this fight, you are culpable and we are going to come after you. But Blinken's comments were very good, but the wrong person issued the comments.
Yeah.
Those need to come from the White House. Those need to come from the President of the United States.
Yeah, you're right.
The Commander-in-Chief.
That is spot on. Do you think we could go to war with Iran?
Well, I don't think it would be. The answer is yes. We should be able to do it, and they should believe that, because they should fear us and they should respect us, not just say, well, we really don't believe they're going to do it. Yeah. We have enough combat capability in the Mediterranean to do something. In Iran, and the Supreme Leader, Khamenei, needs to understand, if you come after us, we're going to come after you. Look, Maria, over 30 Americans have been killed.
There have a lot of attacks.
12 are hostages.
There have been a lot of attacks on U.S. troops. Now, the U.S. is planning to send Iron Dome missile defense systems as F-16 fighter jets arrive in the region. Lieutenant General, your thoughts about this?
Well, I think it's a good idea, but I think the most important thing we've got, very candidly, Maria, is the fact that on board those carrier task groups with the ships associated with them are TLM, Tomahawk land attack missiles that can reach out to Tehran. They've got a 1,600-mile range. They carry a 1,000-pound warhead on each of them. And we need to remind Khamenei, if you really want to push us, we're going to have about 600 missiles in your backyard, and make them believe that. The Iron Dome is good, but it's defensive. The F-16 is good, but it's an air-to-air system. We need to have provocative air missile attacks if necessary, and the Iranians need to believe that.
Yeah.
And we need to put the fear of God into them, that you've already killed Americans, you've hurt Americans, you've attacked our installations both in Syria and Iraq, and we know those are Iranian proxies. You're on the mark right now.
Yeah, it's a good point. I don't know that they believe that just yet. We'll see. Lieutenant General, good to see you. Thanks very much. Keith Kellogg with us this morning once again.
Thanks, Maria.
Thank you, sir.